Hi, I'm Meg Tucker and welcome to a Cook with Meg video where I'm going to teach you how to make a very basic stir fry. It's an awesome dish to know how to make, and it's a blank canvas. You can literally customize this a million different ways. Today I'm going to do carrots and peppers and onions and some chicken in a beautiful sauce, but you can pick any and all veggies and protein that you want. So let's get started. I'm going to peel my carrot. The biggest thing with a stir fry, to be perfectly honest with you, is you really need to spend most of the cook time not even cooking. Does that make sense? Most of the time spent is prepping your vegetables and prepping the meat if you're using meat. You don't have to use meat. You can absolutely make it a veggie stir fry on its own. I've got some chicken that I'm going to slice up, and we'll do that after I get my vegetables cut. The reason I'm doing it afterwards is because we like to stay safe in the kitchen. I have a bowl down in the sink that's grabbing all of my peels, and I'm gonna put my vegetables here on this plate. But we like to stay safe and we like to stay healthy in the kitchen, and in order to do that, we always cut vegetables first and we end with cutting meat. Raw meat would be the last thing on the cutting board, and then nothing else touches it. It goes into the dishwasher or into the sink. So before we dive right in, now that I have my carrot peeled, I want to also let you know that I have my recipe printed. I always keep them on hand, whether it's printed or on a tablet or a phone, or you've written it all down in a notebook. Perfect. That's our roadmap. So we've got now, let's see, we've got our carrots and we need to get them in stir fry mode. What does that mean? Well, if you cut your carrots like little discs, I'll do a couple of them here so you can see, that's fine. That's great. Little round wagon wheels, totally fine. But if you cut carrots on a diagonal, or they call that on the bias, what happens is, you're gonna see here, we are making them like little rectangles, little diamonds or little oval shapes. And what that means for a stir fry is we have more surface area to caramelize. So stir fry is actually not a dish, it's more of a method in that we're using quite high heat to fry or saute, but fry meats and veggies. And that's basically as basic as the definition gets for what is a stir fry. So what I want to do is show you that these discs of carrot are perfect. And you can see there's much more surface area that we're going to get to stir fry and caramelize, and caramelization leads to flavor, major flavor. Wet hands, wipe your wet hands, and we're gonna go again. We're gonna tuck in those fingers, and we're gonna just sort of make our way down the carrot. It's like a little conveyor belt, a carrot conveyor belt. You don't have to go quickly, take your time. I do this when I'm chopping. Careful when you're scraping it off the knife as well. So there we have carrots, gorgeous, beautiful, waiting. Number one, out of the way. Next up, we'll do peppers. So a pepper itself is very rolly. We often talk about vegetables and how they're quite rolly. They roll around on the cutting board, which can lead to slipping, which can lead to accidents, which we do not want in this kitchen. So what I do is I lay it down on its side, and then I just very carefully slice the bottom little nugget off, which, check it out, it sits beautifully. Now this piece I'm gonna slice, and I think for a stir fry I want strips. But again, you're the cook, you decide, do you want strips, do you want pieces, do you want chunks? You make it work for you. So here's how I chop a pepper. Now that we have the base and it's laying flat, I hold on to the stem if there's a stem, and I just basically slice right down the side. Oh my gosh, it's our lucky day. There is another little pepper inside. That doesn't happen all that often, but I really do feel like it's good luck. So we're gonna slice down the side, and we're turning as we slice, essentially like an apple core. Oh, there's lots of little peppers happening on the inside of this bigger pepper. Look at that. So this I will likely take a little more from after, but for the sake of the stir fry, I am good now to take these pieces and break them down and make them a little bit smaller. All right, so let's slice the peppers. I want thin slices. Again, I definitely want to make sure that my peppers aren't too big. And I always like to say that we want to have similar sized items. And so for the carrots being little ovals, now we've got little strips. My chicken is going to be cut into strips. You really do want to keep it relatively the same size. So I'm just gonna work away, getting my peppers sliced. But in the meantime, did you see that my cutting board is going like this? It happens. I'm gonna show you a trick. Are you ready? If you have a piece of paper towel in your kitchen, get it a little bit damp, not soaking wet, but just a little bit damp. And then we're gonna move the cutting board. We're going to lay down a piece of semi-damp paper towel, and then we're gonna place the cutting board on top. Look at that. It anchors it. It's a beautiful trick. I mean, it doesn't completely, totally fix it all the way, but it does a nice job. All right, so I'm gonna use this leftover pepper in another recipe. And that's the thing that I wanna tell you, when you're making recipes, think about how many people you are serving. Let's get going. We'll keep going while I talk, slicing the bottom off this pepper. Yeah, you definitely do not have to make enough for 4 people, 6 people, 8 people, or the entire neighborhood. You can just make a smaller batch, and that sometimes means maybe instead of, 2 or 3 peppers, you're using just 1 pepper, and instead of, a whole great big package of chicken, you're just using 2 chicken breasts or even 1 chicken breast. And that's really where I want to encourage you that you don't always have to get and use exactly what a recipe says. Especially when it comes to something like a stir fry, you can absolutely modify it using the ingredients that you have. If you do not have fresh vegetables, use frozen. Frozen veggies make a wonderful stir fry. I'm only going to use half of a red pepper and half of a yellow pepper, simply because I don't need to make a ton of stir fry today, and you will see pretty cool just how quickly this all adds up. So I already have a nice big plate of veg. I'm gonna now slice up my onion and then have a whole onion, carrot, pepper. Amazing, right? So you don't need to use a ton of ingredients. Not to mention we're gonna use chicken, and if you're serving this with rice or noodles, again, you don't need a ton of things. It does add up. Anchor that onion. I cut both ends off. Some people don't, and sometimes I don't, but I like to kind of keep it hiya, nice and anchored. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, this was like, you know what, Meg? I'm gonna be very cooperative and really be easy for you to take the skin off. Sometimes it peels right off, like that. Amazing. Okay, wet hands. We do so much hand washing in the kitchen, but it's not always just to have clean hands, which we want, but it's also for safety. So then you have dry hands and then you're not handling anything that's slippery. So stir fry, think thin strips. So I'm not cutting my onion in chunks. I'm gonna cut it into semi-thin strips. So I'm just gonna tuck my finger in. And again, if it wants to fall down, let it fall. Put the top of your hand over it. Beautiful. See what I mean by little strips? Like those little I was gonna say rainbows. Yeah, like little half moons. I probably only need a half an onion, but if you wanna use a full onion, go for it. Beautiful. Now, if you don't mind a tiny bit of onion smell on your hands, you'll see what I'm about to do here. I'll just put this guy here. I'll use that. If you have leftover onion, absolutely, or vegetables, freeze them. You could literally spend today cutting all of this up, and then check this out. Watch what I'm about to do. You could take a storage bag and you could literally put all of that in a storage bag and have a stir fry kit. What? Ready. Literally ready and waiting for whenever you want to do stir fry again. All right, quick hand wash, and then I'm going to grab the chicken. Then I'm going to grab the chicken out of the fridge, and we're going to take some time thinly slicing our chicken. Okay, we're back, and I have 2 chicken cutlets down on my cutting board. Again, I've already done all the veg, so right now I can put raw meat on my cutting board, but as soon as I finish with the chicken, I'm going to completely sterilize and wash this cutting board. And I'm also gonna bring over a bowl to put my chicken in. I don't wanna sit it with the vegetables because I am gonna cook the chicken first, then the veg. So that said, I'm gonna turn it sideways and I just wanna cut paper thin little strips. And you can see they're sticking right to the knife. Really super paper thin. Do you need to do paper thin? You can do exactly what you're comfortable with. If you would rather have chunks, little chicken chunks, go for it. I just really like super, super thin for the reason that it cooks really fast. When you have a bigger piece of chicken, obviously it takes longer. Now, if I were not cooking with you right now and I were just in my kitchen on my own, I might take the entire package of chicken behind me and do this to all of it. Prep it, that's what we would call it. So when you do get the time and you're already standing at the counter and you're already knee deep in chicken and you've got the knife and things are moving along, take the time to do the prep on an entire package of something, whether it's chicken, whether it's vegetables, because then it's ready to go and you could freeze it in little pieces. You could also take a whole package of chicken and maybe you cut some of it into strips, you cut some of it into chunks, and you leave some of it as chicken thighs or chicken breasts. And you have 3 different varieties or forms of the same protein in the same ingredient. So that, again, might not look like a lot of chicken. These were a cutlet, they weren't a full chicken breast. But when you add this with all of the vegetables, with a sauce, with potentially at the end some rice or some noodles, that's absolutely going to feed 2, 3, maybe even 4. So I will be back. I am going to completely reset the kitchen. That means I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm going to sterilize this with extremely hot water and then get it into the dishwasher. I'm gonna wash and dry my knife, and I'm going to get my garbage bowl emptied. And then when I come back, we are going to build our stir fry sauce and then bring the burner over and literally stir fry. Again, remember, most of what happens today happens all at the beginning. The cook is the quickest part of the cook. I'll be back in just a minute. Let's clean. We are back. Let's make an easy stir fry sauce. Super simple. We are going to get it ready now, and then when we start cooking, everything's ready. We chop the veggies, we slice the chicken, the sauce will be ready. It's going to come together beautifully. Are you ready? All right, let's grab a small bowl. And to the bowl, we are going to add soy sauce. This happens to be, it's called dark soy sauce, but whatever soy sauce you have, there we go. Please use what you have. We want a 1/4 cup, which works out to be 4 tablespoons. always have to stop talking when I'm pouring so I don't accidentally add too much. So there we've got the base. Soy is, they call it umami. It is a delicious, rich, hard to describe flavor, but it's got that real depth of flavor. So soy sauce is the base. To that, we want to add, if you have sesame oil and you don't have any allergies, we're going to go ahead and add a teaspoon of sesame oil. Now, if you don't have sesame oil, you can go ahead and use any kind of oil, but sesame oil has, I mean, it's literally ground sesame seeds. The flavor is unbelievable. It smells nutty. It's just, oh, I think it's one of my favorite oils for sure. So soy sauce and sesame oil, very reminiscent of an Asian dish. To that, we need to add some garlic. I'm using garlic powder for the sole purpose of garlic powder melts beautifully into a sauce. And I'm gonna do a 1/4 teaspoon. It's dry. It's super concentrated, so you don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon is plenty. So now we have 3 items in our bowl. We've got soy sauce, sesame oil, some garlic. Next up, we want to have a bit of sweetness. So I've got some brown sugar, and we're going to go ahead and melt in 3 tablespoons. There's 1, 2, light brown sugar, dark brown sugar. If you don't have sugar that's brown, you can use granulated white sugar. If you don't have that, you could use honey. You could use molasses. Honestly, all of these items work, but we want that gritty sugar to melt into this gorgeous, gorgeous sauce. So I'm gonna give this a little bit of a whisk, a little bit of a mix. I'll move this out of the way. And the next thing we're gonna add is a little bit of broth. So we've got 1/2 cup, any kind of broth that you might have. Chicken broth, beef broth, vegetable broth. Again, it all works. Now this will definitely make enough stir fry sauce for your entire pan. And because what I'm making today isn't as large, I may have even more sauce than I need, but we love a good sauce around here. So it's coming together beautifully. We only are missing 1 item. Are you ready? That last item is called cornstarch. So cornstarch often comes in a jug like this, a container like this. It is gluten-free, and it's literally corn flour or corn starch. And what we want to do is just wipe out that spoon. I definitely want to always use clean measuring spoons and clean measuring cups, especially when you're dipping into something else, so that you're not putting any of those ingredients into that. But cornstarch is a thickener. It's definitely going to help this become a beautiful sauce. And because we don't have heat on it, we can just dip in, kind of like we do with flour. Get a tablespoon, I'm throwing things around the kitchen. Put it on the back counter because we know we've used it. Pepper, may see you later. And look at me, you can't take me anywhere. That's why I like wearing a chef coat, because you can get it dirty. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna very carefully whisk. We say like whisk the wet into the dry. Whisk the dry into the wet. So we wanna spend a minute or so whisking that cornstarch in. And we really wanna melt it. If it stayed lumpy, it would make for a very lumpy, bumpy sauce. So just take your time, but really get that whisk together. The beautiful thing about this sauce is this is the absolute last thing we add once we have our everything cooked. So we're gonna just sort of set it off to the side. We're gonna bring our vegetables over. We're gonna bring our chicken over, and I'm gonna bring my burner right here, and we are going to officially make this stir fry. Let's stir fry. All right, we're gonna turn on our heat to medium high. We're gonna add about a tablespoon of oil. This happens to be grapeseed oil. Please use whatever you have. We're going to use a spatula, or if you prefer to use tongs, use what's comfy for you. We're gonna let that heat up just for not even a minute. And we are then going to get our chicken cooking first. And that's usually how it works with a stir fry. We like to get the protein or the meat done first. Then you can either take it out and add your vegetables in and then put it all back together and toss it with sauce. That's likely what I'm going to do. So having said that, I absolutely will not put cooked chicken back into a bowl that held raw. So let's grab another bowl, and that will hold the cooked chicken. All right, so we can feel that there is nice amount of heat. We need to get this sizzling. Again, clean hands. We don't want chicken that may have touched any other surface. If you happen to spill chicken, take the time to wipe up your counter. We're gonna get this one sizzling, and because it's so super thin, it's not going to take very long at all to cook. There's the sizzle. You can wait until your pan is nice and hot before you add it. But again, doing something so thin doesn't take very long. So there's the sizzle we're listening for. Let's let that come up to temperature. Let's take about 3 to 4 minutes to make sure that chicken is beautifully cooked all the way through. And then we will take it out of the pan and add our veg. We're already starting to see bits of the chicken, the underside of the chicken getting white. Now, if these were really big chunks, we would want to make sure the chicken was cooked completely through. And just so you know, in order to make sure chicken is fully cooked, it needs to be an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, these are teeny tiny pieces that aren't going to take long at all. We can start to literally move them around in the pan and break them up. This isn't a dish you leave alone and leave the kitchen. Stay on it. I could even have the heat a little bit higher. Do we dare? Stir fry is high heat. In fact, the reason, if you've ever had, food that chicken stir fry or veggie stir fry that's cooked in a wok, my wok doesn't fit on my induction burner, but it does fit on my bigger stove behind me. And that is extremely high heat. Stir fry cooks in a matter of minutes just because it is such high heat. So if you are comfortable, you are more than willing to turn your heat up. Just don't turn it up all the way to high. We never really want to cook on full blast high heat, but definitely like out of 1 to 10, you could go to about a 7. And make sure you have a pan that is either a wok or a non-stick pan. You want your pan to be big enough, and that's why we're taking the time to cook our chicken first. Then we're gonna take it out, put the veggies in, give them a stir fry, and then we will finish with the sauce. Now, something you could add at this stage of the game would be a little bit of pepper. If you wanted to add a little pepper, I'm not adding salt. We've got all the salt from the soy sauce, but a little bit of pepper is always fun. We're sizzling now. Now, something some people do would be look at their vegetables. Now, when I look at my vegetables, I've got carrots, onions, and peppers. Onions and peppers are very soft and they will not take very long to cook at all. But carrots are a root vegetable. They're much harder and they will take longer to cook. So what you could do is just in a moment or two, you could take your chicken out of the frying pan, Then you could add just the carrots and give them a couple of minutes, like a head start, and then put in your peppers and your onions. So it's really all about timing, and you want to look at what are the vegetables we are stir frying and how hard are they. That determines the cook time. And we'll make sure to have that all included on your recipe, that if it's a bigger, harder vegetable, things like carrots, what else broccoli takes a little longer if you had big pieces of cauliflower, but things like mushroom, onions, peppers, they will cook very quickly. We're getting some popping and sizzling happening. If you do experience some sizzling and popping, I don't want you to be nervous. Just turn your heat down a little bit. It just means that either the ingredients in your pan have a little, maybe a little extra oil, not as much in the pan, so it definitely pops around a little bit. And it might just mean that your heat needs to come down just ever so slightly. So just adjust the heat. Pretty easy. All right, I would say that that chicken is looking fairly cooked. We are going to be able to go back in when everything gets added together before we add the sauce, and then we do cook it with the sauce for a couple minutes. So really, as long as you're no longer seeing any pink, you can also take out a piece of chicken. You could use your spatula. You could do what I'm doing right now and sort of cut through a piece of chicken. If it cuts through easily, you're good to go. That's awesome. The other thing you could do is you could move your chicken to the side, and if you really like your chicken a little more well cooked, you could move your chicken to the side and you could throw your carrots on their own and give them a bit of a head start. That means your chicken still gets a little love, but your carrots need a little softening. Now, I will tell you that when it comes to stir fry, specifically with veggies, you want your veggies to still have some crunch. You don't want a mushy stir fry. So while we want to take a little bit of the bite, we call it the bite, want a little bit of the bite off of the vegetables, you still want them to have some texture. So just let your carrots kind of do their thing here for a minute or two. The thinner you slice your vegetables, also, the quicker they will cook. Beautiful. Leave them be for a minute or so. This would be an opportunity if you had to put a couple things away. We don't go very far away from a stir fry, but if you wanted to just put a couple of things away, you certainly could. If you feel like, wow, that chicken is definitely very well cooked at this point, you can take your chicken out. So we've got a fresh plate or a fresh bowl. Tongs are your best friend in this situation. Grab that chicken. This is unseasoned. I mean, it's got pepper, but we haven't really done salt. We haven't done pepper. We haven't done a marinade or anything because it's all happening when we get that beautiful stir fry sauce added at the end. So let's just gather the chicken, let those carrots have their moment to shine. Other vegetables you could be using, oh my gosh, snow peas, snap peas, super delicious. That's enough time, so I'm going in now with the rest of my veg, my onion, my pepper. One thing I will tell you is that when you stir fry peppers and onions, especially peppers, they are going to give off a lot of moisture. So you're gonna start to hear sizzling again, and you're going to see the pan. Maybe the pan was looking a little dry. It's not gonna be dry here in a minute because you are definitely going to see the moisture coming out of those peppers. Moisture big time, a lot of water content in peppers. The same for mushrooms. So if mushrooms are going into your stir fry, absolutely, they don't need a lot of time to cook. So high heat, you want to hear the sizzle. If for whatever reason you're not hearing the sizzle, crank that heat up a little bit. We like to keep vegetables going in the pan. If you're really strong, you can kind of flip them in your frying pan. I just like to kind of keep them moving. I can see, moving right out of the pan, I can see that we've got still enough oil and moisture in my frying pan that nothing is looking dry. Having said that, let's say your pan at this point was looking mighty dry and you didn't want to add more oil because we don't need more fat. You could always take a little bit of either chicken broth or a little bit of water and add that. The noise gets a little louder, and essentially there we go. Essentially what we're doing is we're almost creating a steam bath. Add a little bit more if you want it, just to show you. There we go. And it helps your vegetables soften and steam. So again, just a little trick, a little bit of water, a little bit of broth, almost creates its own sauce, if you will. Speaking of sauce, we are not very far away. I know my carrots still have quite a bit of bite, but I am seeing my onions, they have gone from being pure white and raw to being almost clear and translucent. When you get it to look almost clear, that means they're sauteed, they're soft, they don't have any more of that raw bite, and that's ultimately, we don't really want raw onion in stir fry. So that's the kind of level of cook we're looking for. So if you're ready, I'm ready. We're gonna move to the final step. Yours might still be cooking, but you can certainly watch along with me. I'm gonna add that chicken and any juice right back into my pan. And I'm gonna toss my vegetables with my chicken. I'm still hearing the sizzle. It sounds amazing. It looks amazing. And I'm gonna get ready to add my sauce. Now I'm gonna give it another stir. Remember, we want that brown sugar to melt. We want the cornstarch to melt. And I'm not adding the entire amount in, only because I might not need that amount. So the trick is you add a little bit at a time, just a little bit at a time. I'm gonna give it about 30 more seconds and then it's saucy time. 30 more seconds. Are you ready for the sauce? All right, this is looking gorgeous. I can tell my carrots have softened. You can easily grab a fork and just test one. Just know that when we go to add our sauce, we're in the home stretch. Things don't cook for much longer once you add the sauce. So let's carefully, I'm gonna pour in about half. Oh yes, what is happening? A couple of things. Oh my gosh, this looks amazing. First of all, the smell is out of this world. It is garlicky and rich and dark. Can you see the color? Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Now, it automatically looks incredible. And because we added the cornstarch, can you see what started out as super liquid is now already thickening up? So we're just gonna toss it for just another 20 seconds and then it's coming off the heat. Wow, that's enough for me. That is absolutely enough sauce. If you want to add more sauce, you go for it. If you used more vegetables, much more chicken, much more meat, you go for it. This looks unbelievable. I want to do one thing because I have some sesame seeds in my cupboard. If you had sesame seeds, it's a fun way to kind of end a stir fry. Shake a few sesame seeds over top. Maybe you're a house that loves cashews or peanuts. You can chop up or just throw in a handful of chopped of peanuts or cashews. Delicious. And how hot is that? Not too hot. I'm gonna just do my very best to hold this up so you guys can see. Take a look. I mean, look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. amazing. Now, how would I serve mine? I would serve this with rice or stir-fried noodles. I would also just eat this like this. Like, it doesn't need things. Things are fun, but it could be just perfect like this. So let's try the chicken with a little bite of carrot. I know my carrot is still gonna have a bit of crunch, but let's taste it for flavor and seasonings. That's unbelievable. You get the sweetness from the brown sugar. You get the nuttiness from the sesame. It's creamy. The chicken almost becomes creamy. Listen, even if you don't use chicken, you just saw me put my fork back into the same pan. That's okay, it's just me this afternoon. So delicious. What I love about this, it's not overly sweet, but the little bit of brown sugar, when added to the soy and the garlic, really, really helps balance it out. So you're getting a little bit of sweet, a little bit of sour, a little bit of heat from the pepper. Now, if you like spice, you could add a little squeeze of sriracha into the sauce. You could add a few red pepper chili flakes into the sauce. Really, the sky is the limit. I washed my fork. I'm going in for more. These carrots are perfect. They still have, oh, they're so sweet. They still have a little bit of chew and a little bit of bite because you don't want anything mushy, but they're cooked enough to no longer be considered raw. This is amazing. There it is. You saw how quickly this all came together. We have officially made a basic stir fry. Mine is chicken. Super interested to know what yours turns out to be. I hope you have fun. Now, when you go to clean, there are a number of things we need to clean up and put away. So we always clean as we go, and then we clean our kitchens. Whatever doesn't get eaten, absolutely pop it into the fridge. It will be delicious tomorrow. It may not be as crunchy, but I guarantee the flavors will be almost better because they have had a chance to kind of soak in and get really happy. So that's gonna wrap it up for me. I hope that you have enjoyed making a basic stir fry. I love cooking with you, and I hope we can do it again. In the meantime, until we see you, until next time, please remember always that we are awesome. For more about me, cookwithmeg.com, and we'll see you again next time.